Investor interest in non-financial performance information has really been fueled by their interest in looking at how companies are going to sustainably establish their competitive position in the market over the long term. And so their interest has moved beyond just financial performance into other areas of non-financial performance. For example, looking at environment, health, safety performance, looking at asset integrity, asset reliability, looking at how organizations manage their supply chain as a means of understanding how various companies are differentiating their activities to really maintain a sustainable position with regard to all the factors that contribute to their financial performance over the long term. Operational excellence programs and operational risk management are really intimately related. One of the key objectives of operational excellence programs is to mitigate risk to the organization, as some of the focus areas are very intently looking to address managing potential adverse outcomes. So having risk management as an embedded and integral component of those programs is really essential to understanding the risk profile of the organization and prioritizing and marshaling resources as effectively as possible. So operational excellence and operational risk are intimately related concepts, and part of managing operational risk is building on the standard policies and procedures of an operational excellence initiative. Once you've done that, the key element beyond that is really incorporating standardized risk assessment methodologies so that an organization can meaningfully compare risk across the organization, looking at different sources of risk and identifying an appropriate prioritization of the potential outcomes associated with those risk factors. Once those risk assessments have been conducted, it's really looking at an appropriate application of controls. And an established best practice associated with safety is the hierarchy of controls, which looks at really a hierarchy of different control mechanisms that can be employed, ranging from direct elimination of risk based on changes in design, for example, with regards to the way a business process may be structured, all the way through to administrative controls that deal more specifically with how work practices can be modified in order to minimize risk exposure. And the final element is really ensuring that there's appropriate oversight of the program. So not only just monitoring and managing the controls themselves to verify their execution and effectiveness, but ensuring that the organization has appropriate oversight practices so that those programs are being faithfully executed with regard to their intent. So successful companies are using information technology, and more specifically enterprise information systems, to enable their operational excellence programs. And so building on a robustly defined operational excellence program with the various elements that govern different facets of operational performance, they're using information technology to really embed those activities into the organization and execute them in a consistent and effective way, and using information management really as a technique to improve transparency and visibility, which is ultimately most important for senior management as they look to understand how to better manage and ultimately drive the performance of the business. So as organizations deploy IT solutions to enable their operational excellence programs, there are several key challenges that they faced. First and foremost, it's that many of these programs ultimately represent significant organizational change. There's cultural change, behavioral change, and acknowledging the scope and scale of that change and planning appropriately to manage those organizational dynamics is critical. A second area that organizations face challenges is recognizing that the deployment of these IT solutions is more than a project. It's a project that has to be sustained over the long term. And so planning for the long term, not just the delivery of the system initially, and establishing organizational capability to sustain that over the long term is critically important. And organizations that recognize those two factors are the ones that are ultimately most successful.